Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be talking about endpoint security, EDR, and following that we will talk about processes and parent-child process relationships, and then we'll talk about sysinternals, osquery, wazoo, and Windows event logs. I'm very excited, so let's jump on that. So let's start. When we start a task manager on Windows host, we'll see processes, and processes has names, process ID values, and they have status. They have a username, which is which user has started the process, and they have a path, process path, file path, or what you call, and they have a command line. So when we talk about services.exe, services.exe has a PID value of 500 and it is running as username cyberbro, and it has an image path name C Windows System 32 and services.exe. Now it has a parent process which is wininit.exe. Processes have parent and child processes. So services.exe can have childs like service host.exe. And let's shrink our size so you can see. I think that's okay. So sysinternals. Sysinternals is a package of Windows utilities which contains about 70 plus Windows-based tools which covers files and disk utility programs, networking utilities, and system information and security utilities. I mostly use sysinternals tools to view network traffic and process monitoring. And on today's room, we will see TCP view and process monitor. TCP view is a Windows program that will show you detailed listings of all TCP and UDP endpoints on your system. Like for example, Chrome.exe. It has a PID. It is using UDP protocol. There's a local address and a local port, and it is connecting to a remote address and a remote port, which is not listed here. Another example is Process Explorer, which displays processes, attributes, threads like disk and network utilities. Like for example, on this service host.exe, it is registered in this process web client. So in this service host.exe, web client is registered. So when a process runs, it may sometimes run under service host.exe, and a process can have network traffic. A process can have threads and handles, and a process will have, like for example, the web client.dll. A process will load DLL or DLLs, dynamic linked libraries, and when I, for example, as an analyst, when I am trying to figure out which process is malicious, I'll look which DLLs it imported, like if the DLL is signed or unsigned, and the DLL's hash value is known to Aristotle, or I'll look its network connections and services. So this is actually my fifth take of this video. Some Murphy rules was running tonight. So the Windows init.exe is the parent of services.exe, and the network utility tool introduced in this task was the TCP view. Let's move to endpoint logging and monitoring. So I just opened up my event viewer, and Windows event logs as an instant responder. On the cases we review and analyze on Windows event logs, and they are very helpful to do our job. And most of the time we will look at the security.evtx and the PowerShell logs and the remote desktop connection logs. They are very helpful. And there are some ways to open event logs. So basically I just write event viewer on search box, or you can use the PowerShell option or the command line tool. So here is the event viewer. We have application logs, security logs, setup, system, and other log types here mentioned. Like there is Windows PowerShell logs here. There are some event IDs that we will make a filter for it. I personally filter for these. For PowerShell, I personally choose script block logging logs. They have the event ID of 4103 and 4104. On my desktop they are not open. On default they are not open. Basically you have to open them, or if you're in an enterprise place, you have to force it with a group policy to log that script blocks. Let's close that and move. So Sysmon is a tool to use to monitor and log events on Windows. It is commonly used by enterprises as part of their monitoring and logging solutions. And Sysmon gathers detailed and high quality logs as well as event tracing. Sysmon is more detailed than the logs we analyze on a system. Normally the Windows will not log the DNS queries or the URLs we are browsing or the network connections we are making. So the Sysmon has it all, and Sysmon has 27 types of event IDs. And on Security World, people are writing rules to detect malicious activities with Sysmon events. Personally, I haven't used osquery, and I'll skip that. But I use Wazoo for daily operations. Wazoo is an open source, freely available, as for now it is marketing the Wazoo product as an extensive EDR solution like an XDR. As mentioned, Wazoo is basically an EDR. An EDR is a program that gathers telemetry from Windows or Linux endpoints to forward to an database, basically. And after that, you gather the data and you analyze it. Like, for example, if a command cmd.exe is a child of winword.exe, that is a malicious process tree. So we can write a rule on Wazoo that if this happens, make an alert. So on PowerShell it is get win event, right? Provide the command used to enter osquery CLI. It was basically osquery endpoint detection and response. Okay, let's move on. Endpoint log analysis. Event correlation. Event correlation identifies significant relationships from multiple log sources such as application logs, endpoint logs, and network logs. So we've site, let's click that. Warning, this machine has been compromised. Let's start the investigation. So basically there is our beacon.exe. It is using highly-ish CPU. So the beacon.exe is malicious because it is not a default or built-in Windows process. Our beacon.exe has a process ID of 6823 and it has a network connection and it is connected to this IP address from this port 44444. Let's move on. With this information we can connect the dots. Okay, we have a process name, its process ID, the remote address, and the remote port. So if we had a hash value of the beacon.exe, that will be an IOC for us, and the hash value of that process and the remote address will be our IOCs. IOC is aka indicator of compromise. So if you have these telemetry values found on your EDR, that means that you could be compromised. You have to check that. Okay, we just did that. Provide the flag for simulated investigation activity. So malicious process beacon.exe. Okay, so this is malicious. Find all machines affected using the. Okay, basically we are like on an EDR. We can just write IP address. If it is equal to this malicious IP address, get me those records and I'll look at that. Let's write our IP address here. Let's see if other computers are infected and or compromised. So they have 4 beacons. Let's remediate. Okay, we are the boss. You may get your reward from the flag.txt file on the desktop. Okay. So the flag is Endpoint Security. Can we copy? Sweet. Let's submit that. So that was the end of it. There is no other task to move on. So in this room, it is telling us what an endpoint security is, how to respond to an incident, and we have learned some Windows things along the way. Like I have never used osquery before. Thanks for watching. I'll try to record more frequently. Thanks guys. See you next time.